Before you continue listening, pause for just a moment. Place your hand gently over your heart and take one slow, steady breath. Let yourself become fully present. Because what you are about to hear is more than a collection of simple words. It may be the message your soul has quietly been waiting for. If this message found you today, do not brush it aside as mere coincidence. Some truths appear only when we are emotionally ready to receive them. There is a reason your feelings have become stronger lately. There is a reason certain memories continue returning when you least expect them. Somewhere, someone has been carrying your name in silence, holding thoughts they have never had the courage to speak. Right now, life seems to be quietly arranging the circumstances for an important meeting. Someone meaningful is preparing to step toward you with something they have hidden deep inside for far too long. Take one more slow breath before you continue listening, because this message is not meant to feel ordinary. It may arrive at exactly the right moment for a reason. Stay with me until the end, because one small detail could completely change the way you see your situation. You may discover something you never expected. Sometimes the answers we search for appear only after we choose to keep listening. There is someone, whether they are still part of your present life or someone from your past, who thinks about you far more often than you realize. They may have stayed silent. They may have created distance between you. From the outside, it may have seemed as though they had moved on without looking back. But beneath that quiet surface, something has been changing inside them. Day after day, those hidden emotions have continued growing until they became impossible to ignore. Soon, this person may find a way back into your life. It may not happen by accident, and it may not feel like an ordinary conversation or a simple reunion. They are moving toward you because the weight of what they have been carrying has become too heavy to keep inside any longer. There is something they have protected for a long time, and now they feel an overwhelming need to finally tell you the truth. What they choose to share could leave you genuinely surprised. Before we continue, ask yourself one question. Have you been feeling that something important is getting closer? If your answer is yes, keep listening, because the next part may explain why. Sometimes the heart notices changes long before the mind can understand them. There is a reason this meeting feels almost impossible to avoid. Some connections seem to exist beyond simple explanation. Time may pass, distance may grow, silence may last for months or even years, yet certain emotional bonds refuse to disappear. They remain quietly alive beneath the surface, untouched by pride, misunderstandings, or physical separation. Maybe you have noticed unusual moments recently. Thoughts of this person suddenly appeared without any clear reason. You unexpectedly heard their name during a conversation. They showed up in your dreams with surprising clarity. Or perhaps waves of emotion came over you without warning, leaving you wondering where those feelings came from. Many people quickly dismiss experiences like these as ordinary coincidence. Yet sometimes life has a different way of getting our attention. Not everything meaningful arrives with loud signs. Some messages come softly. They appear through quiet moments that seem small until everything suddenly begins making sense. Keep watching, because what comes next may connect pieces you have been trying to understand for a very long time. The final part may reveal why these moments have been happening now instead of before. Sometimes, though, these moments can feel like gentle reminders that certain emotional connections never completely disappear, even after long periods without contact. It can seem as if an invisible thread still quietly connects two people whose paths have gone in different directions, drawing their thoughts back to each other despite all the silence. You may see these experiences as intuition. You may believe they are meaningful coincidences, or perhaps they are simply the mind returning to a chapter that never truly felt finished. Whatever explanation you choose, they often carry a deep emotional weight that is difficult to ignore. And when those same feelings continue returning again and again, It naturally makes you wonder whether something important is still waiting ahead. Before this person ever thought about reaching out, they did everything they could to push these emotions aside. They stayed busy. They filled their schedule with distractions. They convinced themselves they had already moved on and that life had entered a completely new chapter. But every time the world became quiet, especially during the late hours of the night, one thought always found its way back. It was you. No matter how hard they tried to silence those memories, they kept returning with surprising strength. Over time, feelings that remain hidden create a pressure that cannot stay locked away forever. That is why this meeting feels as though it has been slowly building for much longer than either of you realized. Stay with me because the next part may explain why everything is beginning to change now instead of months ago. From the outside, this person may look completely fine. They may seem confident. They may appear successful. They may even look genuinely happy in the eyes of everyone around them. But appearances rarely reveal what is happening beneath the surface. Inside, they have been caught in a quiet emotional struggle that almost no one has noticed. Again and again, they replay the moments you shared together. They remember your voice. They remember your smile, your expressions, and conversations that once seemed ordinary but now carry unexpected meaning. Small details they barely noticed before have become impossible to forget. Certain questions continue moving through their mind without giving them peace. Why do these feelings still remain? Why has moving on been so difficult? Why has no one else created the same sense of connection? Those questions have slowly guided them toward a realization they never expected to face. The answer is not easy because it asks them to admit something they spent a long time avoiding. You mattered far more than they ever allowed themselves to admit. Even harder is recognizing that what happened between you was not only about bad timing or difficult circumstances. Deep inside, they are beginning to understand that many of the choices they made helped create the distance between you. That understanding has become heavier with every passing day. Keep listening because the next part may reveal why they waited so long before saying anything at all. You may naturally ask yourself one simple question. If they truly feel all of this, why did they stay silent for so long? The answer is far more complicated than simply not caring. Fear stood in front of every step they wanted to take. They feared hearing the word no. They feared discovering that your life had already moved forward without them. They feared your strength, your confidence, and the possibility that you no longer needed them in the same way. More than anything, they feared facing the decisions they wish they could erase. Staying silent felt safer than risking complete honesty. As long as no conversation happened, they could avoid confronting the consequences of their own actions. But silence always comes with a hidden price. Every day they chose not to reach out, the truth inside them only became louder. What once felt like protection slowly turned into emotional exhaustion. The effort of avoiding the conversation became more painful than the conversation itself. That was the moment they started realizing that silence could no longer give them the peace they had been searching for. If this is connecting with your own experience, keep watching until the end, because one final piece may help everything make much more sense. Recently, something happened that quietly changed the direction of their thoughts. It may have looked like an ordinary moment that anyone else would have ignored. Perhaps they saw a picture of you smiling. Maybe they heard unexpected news about your life. They could have crossed paths with a familiar place that brought old memories rushing back without warning. It may even have been a simple conversation or a quiet evening that suddenly reminded them of everything they had tried so hard to forget. Whatever the moment was, it touched something deep inside them. The walls they had spent so much time building no longer felt as strong. Old emotions returned with surprising clarity, and ignoring them became almost impossible. For the first time in a long while, they stopped running from those feelings and started listening to them instead. That single moment did not solve everything overnight, but it changed the direction of their heart. It became the beginning of a different way of thinking. Sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest turning points, and people only recognize their importance after everything has already begun to change. Stay with me, because what happens next may be the part that brings every piece of this story together. A memory may have returned without warning. They may have found themselves surrounded by people, yet still felt completely alone. Maybe they passed a familiar place, heard a certain song, or experienced a quiet moment that suddenly brought everything back. Whatever the reason was, it reached a part of their heart they could no longer ignore. In that instant, one thought became impossible to silence. If I never speak the truth, I may carry this regret for the rest of my life. That realization did not come from impulse or a passing emotion. It came from somewhere much deeper. It was a quiet certainty that hiding their feelings was no longer an option. They understood that time could keep moving forward, but unanswered emotions would continue following them wherever they went. That is why this moment feels different from everything that came before. Something inside them has changed, and once that kind of change happens, it is very difficult to return to the old way of living. They have reached the point where honesty feels less frightening than another year of silence. Stay with me, because the next part explains why this conversation may be nothing like you expect. The ending could completely change the way you look at everything that happened between you. This is not simply a conversation to catch up or exchange polite words. They are not coming back just to ask how you have been or to revisit old memories for a few minutes. They are coming because there are things they never found the courage to say. Behind the silence were emotions hidden by pride. Behind the distance were regrets carried quietly for much longer than anyone realized. Behind the calm appearance were feelings they believed would eventually disappear, yet those feelings never truly left. For a long time, you may have believed they were emotionally distant, completely unaffected, or ready to move on without looking back. But the truth may be far more complicated. They cared much more deeply than they ever allowed themselves to show. Their actions did not always reflect what was happening inside their heart. Fear kept them quiet. Doubt kept them frozen. Hesitation stopped them from becoming vulnerable when it mattered most. Now they are beginning to understand that silence solved nothing. Instead, it only made every unanswered emotion grow stronger. Hearing what they have carried all this time may completely change the way you understand the distance between you. Keep watching, because the next part reveals the words they have been preparing to say for longer than you could imagine. The truth they have been holding inside is not something they have shared with anyone else. They have imagined this conversation countless times, searching for the right words, wondering how to explain everything they have carried for so long. Again and again they pictured your reaction. They imagined your expression. They imagined the silence that might follow. They imagined your questions, and even the possibility that you would simply walk away without saying anything. No matter how many times they rehearsed it in their mind, they never found a version that felt easy. Yet one fact has become impossible to ignore. They cannot continue pretending that nothing ever happened. Whatever the outcome may be, they know they have to speak honestly. Even if telling the truth means risking the future they still quietly hope for, they would rather face that uncertainty than spend the rest of their life wondering what might have happened if they had only been brave enough to speak. If this message is resonating with you, stay until the very end, because the final piece may explain why this confession carries so much emotional weight. The words they long to say are not dramatic, yet they are incredibly difficult to speak. They want to admit, "I was wrong. I did not handle what we had the way I should have. I did not understand how to love you in the way you truly deserved." For someone who has spent so much time protecting their pride, saying those words feels harder than facing rejection itself. Lowering those emotional walls requires a level of openness they have avoided for a very long time. But growth often begins where pride finally ends. They now understand that real strength is not found in hiding emotions. It is found in having the courage to face them with honesty. That is why this conversation, if it happens, will not only be about looking back at the past. It will also be about taking responsibility, speaking the truth without excuses, and finally allowing hidden feelings to step into the light. Sometimes one honest conversation can change years of silence, and sometimes a few sincere words can heal wounds that seemed impossible to reach. Keep listening, because the next part may reveal what happens after the truth is finally spoken. Sometimes it is only after someone is gone that their true value becomes clear. While a person is always close, it is easy to overlook the quiet ways they make life better. But once that presence disappears, the empty space they leave behind becomes impossible to ignore. That is exactly what has been happening inside them. Time has given them a different point of view. Little by little, they began noticing qualities in you that they once accepted without much thought. Your calm nature brought a sense of peace they never fully appreciated. Your loyalty was never temporary or convenient. It was real. Your kindness was never for attention. It came naturally from your heart. As they continued living their life, they found themselves comparing new people and new experiences to the connection they once shared with you. Again and again, something felt incomplete. Not because everyone else was lacking, but because what you shared carried a depth they failed to recognize while they still had it. Now they understand that your connection was never ordinary. It was more meaningful than they allowed themselves to believe. Some people spend years searching for that kind of bond without ever finding it. Stay with me, because the next part reveals why meeting you again feels both exciting and deeply frightening at the same time. As much as they want to see you again, they are also afraid of what comes next. Once the truth is spoken, there is no easy way to return to silence. Honest words change everything. They know they are taking a risk. They may face disappointment. They may hear an answer they never wanted to hear. They may discover that your life has completely moved forward without them. They may even receive the closure they have secretly feared all along. Yet despite every possible outcome, they have realized something even harder to live with. A lifetime of unanswered questions feels heavier than hearing an honest answer. Regret has become more painful than uncertainty. That is why they are choosing courage instead of comfort. Courage offers no promises, but silence no longer offers peace either. If you have ever wondered why someone waits so long before speaking, this may be the reason. Fear can delay the truth, but it rarely removes it. Keep watching, because the next part is just as important. It is not only about their journey, it is also about the person you have become through everything you have experienced. This message is not only about what has changed inside them, it is also about how much you have changed. Life has shaped you in ways you may not always notice. Challenges have made you stronger. Difficult moments have taught you lessons you could not have learned any other way. You have become wiser, more patient, and more emotionally grounded than you once were. Because of that growth, if this meeting happens, do not enter it with unrealistic expectations or emotional dependence. Walk into it with a clear mind and an open heart. Listen carefully to what they say, but do not let beautiful words alone decide what you believe. Watch for consistency. Notice how they behave over time. Actions always tell a deeper story than promises ever can. Words may create hope in a single moment, but lasting change is revealed through everyday choices. Honest feelings without responsibility cannot build a healthy future. Real transformation is not something that is simply spoken. It is something that becomes visible through actions. Trust what you see just as much as what you hear. Stay until the end, because one final detail may completely change the way you view this meeting. When the moment finally arrives, you may feel something different before either of you even speaks. The atmosphere could seem heavier than expected, filled with quiet emotion, anticipation, and everything that has remained hidden for so long. Time may appear to slow down. The sounds around you may fade into the background. There may be long pauses, meaningful glances, and moments where silence communicates more than words ever could. Whether you see this experience as perfect timing, emotional memory, or simply the result of unfinished feelings, it carries a purpose that should not be ignored. Its purpose is not necessarily to bring two people back together. Sometimes the greatest gift of an honest conversation is understanding. Sometimes it brings healing, sometimes it offers closure, and sometimes it opens the door to a completely new beginning built on truth instead of fear. What happens after that meeting will depend not only on the words that are spoken, but also on the choices both of you make once the silence has finally been broken. If this message has stayed with you until now, there may be a reason for that. The next chapter of your story has not been written yet, and sometimes everything changes with one honest conversation. Its purpose is to bring hidden truth into the light. Sometimes honesty opens the door to a brand new beginning. Other times it provides the closure both hearts have quietly needed for a long time. Either way, this meeting exists to uncover what has remained unspoken. After carrying these emotions for so long, there is one truth they can no longer keep inside. They never truly stopped loving you. They tried everything to convince themselves those feelings had disappeared. They buried themselves in work. They built new routines. They searched for distractions. They may have even tried to move forward with new relationships, hoping that time alone would erase what they felt. But real emotions rarely disappear simply because we ask them to. Instead, they remain beneath the surface, waiting for quiet moments when the heart can no longer ignore them. Eventually, pretending became more exhausting than facing reality. Now they are ready to admit what they have denied for so long. Not because they know how this story will end, but because living as though those feelings never existed has become impossible. Stay with me because the next few moments may reveal why this truth arrives exactly when it does. Sometimes the timing of honesty changes everything. Whatever happens after this conversation, life is unlikely to stay exactly the same. Maybe it becomes the beginning of a new chapter, built on honesty, understanding, and emotional growth. Maybe it becomes the conversation that finally allows both of you to move forward without carrying unanswered questions. Either outcome has meaning because unfinished stories have a way of staying with us far longer than we expect. When the truth is finally spoken, something begins to change inside. The uncertainty slowly fades, replaced by a quiet peace that only honesty can bring. Healing does not always look the same. Sometimes it arrives through reunion, sometimes it arrives through acceptance. Both can be equally powerful. Neither one is a failure. What matters most is that the silence finally ends and both hearts are given the chance to breathe again. If this message feels personal, keep listening until the very end, because one final insight could completely change the way you see your own journey. The next part is not only about them, it is about how you choose to respond. If this conversation really happens, allow them the space to say everything they have been carrying for so long. Resist the urge to interrupt or decide too quickly what everything means. Let the whole truth unfold before you make up your mind. Listen carefully, not only to the words they speak, but also to the honesty behind them. Then, when it is your turn, answer from a place of calm instead of reacting in the heat of emotion. Clear thinking is often more powerful than immediate emotion. Give yourself permission to take the time you need. Choose the response that protects your peace, respects your boundaries, and reflects the person you have become through every challenge you have faced. Above everything else, remember this: you are not standing in this moment because life is testing you. You are here because you are being given something many people never receive: the truth. Whether that truth leads to a fresh beginning, deeper understanding, peaceful closure, or a completely different direction, it offers something priceless. It brings certainty where confusion once existed. Keep watching because the final message may stay with you long after this video ends. Before this message comes to an end, pause for one more quiet moment and ask yourself a simple question. What did these words awaken inside you? Did they leave you feeling hopeful, peaceful, thoughtful, or did they bring a kind of clarity that has been missing for a long time? Sometimes life does not place answers in front of us simply to bring another person back into our lives. Sometimes the answers we have been searching for arrive to reconnect us with ourselves. They help us rediscover the strength that became buried beneath disappointment, unanswered questions, or emotional pain. We often believe that clarity must come through someone else's explanation or actions. Yet the deepest clarity usually grows from within. It appears when you finally recognize your own value, your own resilience, and the lessons every experience has quietly been teaching you. Never underestimate how far you have come. You survived the silence. You carried yourself through uncertainty. You learned, healed, and became stronger than you once believed possible. Whatever happens next, let your choices come from confidence instead of fear. And if this message found you at exactly the right time, perhaps that is not something to ignore. Sometimes, the greatest change begins the moment you truly see your own worth. If you have spent months or even years asking yourself why someone came into your life, why they walked away, or why certain feelings still remain, remember this. Not every journey is meant to end with two people finding their way back to each other. Some connections arrive to awaken something inside you. They encourage you to grow. They push you toward healing. They help you discover strengths and parts of yourself that may have stayed hidden without that experience. Even relationships that brought pain can become valuable teachers when you choose to see them through the lens of growth instead of only loss. Never doubt the honesty of what your heart experienced. If you felt a deep bond with someone, those emotions were real because they were real to you. Your feelings were never imaginary simply because life took a different path or because the relationship did not unfold as you expected. Emotions can be genuine even when the ending is uncertain. The value of your love has never depended on whether another person stayed. It has always been measured by the honesty with which you gave it. Stay with me until the very end, because the next few moments may change the way you see your own story. Sometimes one simple truth is enough to bring a completely different perspective. It is also important to let go of the belief that you imagined everything.